Welcome, and greetings to all. I am Shen Long Pen Dragon, the Lore Master. So as per usual, a quick disclaimer, I don't own any of the images or the story in this video. The credit for these all belong to their original sources. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be telling you the tale of Greyfriars Bobby. Many of you will probably already know this story, but for any of you who don't, then please do enjoy. Bobby's story is one of loyalty, and many of you may find this video upsetting in terms of the storyline, and if so, I do apologise. However, if you are interested, then please do continue to watch. The story is in fact a true story. Many do argue about the accuracy of it, but I do assure you that the story is true. This is obviously a very famous statue of Bobby himself, and without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's actually move on. So, Bobby, as you can obviously know, is a dog, or rather was a dog, from the 1800s. Exactly who his owner was is sometimes debated. This is a picture of Bobby from a movie from 1961, I believe, and this one depicts his owner as an old farmer. However, that is not the historical or traditional belief of who Bobby's owner was, but it is one of the beliefs. So, to begin with the story of Bobby, I suppose we should start with his birth in 1855. He was presented to the night watchman or policeman John Grey for acts of service as a puppy, and John eventually died sadly in the line of duty. Bobby himself died in 1872, roughly 14 years after his owner's death, and the story goes that Bobby spent those 14 years guarding his master's grave in Greyfriars graveyard, and you can see the church in the background. This particular image is from the 2005 movie adaptation of Bobby. So this is another picture of Bobby from that movie, again showing him protecting the grave. It was quite often that originally the church staff tried to get rid of the dog, but when they found that he was actually catching the rats and keeping the rat population within the church down, they found that the dog's actually quite useful, and in reality he's not doing any harm, he's not digging up the graves, he's not ruining any of the flowers or anything, so why not leave him there? He's quite happy, so just leave him, he's not doing any harm. So in the end, the priest managed to convince his staff to stop annoying the dog and stop trying to shoot him, because at the end of the day he just kept coming back to the grave, they couldn't get rid of him. So this is the modern grave of John Grey. It has been altered somewhat over time. This particular one now identifies him as the owner of Bobby. I am very sorry to say that recently John Grey's gravestone, or his tombstone, was vandalised in Edinburgh. The exact circumstances are unknown. The police are looking into it. However, somebody, most likely someone who was very drunk, wandered into the graveyard at night and knocked it over. If anybody is within that area and wants to visit the grave, police have sent out a warning saying that the grave is now safe to visit, but it hasn't actually been repaired yet. So just bear that in mind. This is a shame, because today, on the 14th of January, there is actually a ceremony dedicated to Bobby and John Grey, and obviously the headstone's wrecked, so it's not ready in time for the ceremony, and that's a great big shame. Not only for anyone visiting the grave, but desecrating the graves of the dead is, well, frankly, it's despicable. I can't think of a better word. So one famous occurrence was that many people didn't like the fact that Bobby was in the graveyard. Primarily very, very snobby people that didn't like the fact that an animal was within a Christian site. So a petition was raised from both sides, with massive support from the people of Edinburgh and the church for Bobby staying at Greyfriars, and the other side to get rid of the dog, or some of them even wanted him put down. And this image, again from the 2005 movie, shows Sir William Chambers, who is the Lord Provost of Edinburgh and the director of the Scottish Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, hearing the petitions. You can see him on the left-hand side, played by Christopher Lee in the movie. So, what was the outcome of the, well, for lack of a better term, the hearing, because it wasn't exactly a trial? Well, it was good news for Bobby. The Sir William heard the complaints from both sides, and he actually passed it that Bobby could stay within the graveyard, as he wasn't doing any harm and no harm was being done to him. As a result, there was no need to move him, especially since the church staff were quite happy to have him stay, especially since he was taking care of the pest problem. So Sir William actually paid for Bobby's collar and license to allow him to stay there, and you can actually still see this collar within the Museum of Edinburgh. And here is the collar itself. I do apologise for the picture quality. It was very hard to find any good quality pictures of it, because most of them are taken off phone cameras. Yeah, so this is the collar itself with the badge all nicely polished, showing that this is Greyfriars Bobby's collar. And believe it or not, in that exact same exhibit, you can actually see Bobby's dinner dish, and I'm glad to see that this picture did turn out a little better. Obviously, if you want to read the caption here, I will allow you to pause the video and read it yourselves. But there's not really much more to say on it, that the dog was so famous and so beloved by the people of Edinburgh that they immortalised him not only with a statue but with his own exhibit within Edinburgh. And you can just see behind the bowl that there is in fact a picture or a painting of Bobby himself. So slightly zoomed out, that's a better image of the collar with the bowl behind him and the drinking cup on the other side. So there is some debate on exactly what Bobby may have looked like. The statue and this particular sketch are the most likely representations of him. I don't know the name of the artist who made this sketch, but it was done in the late 1800s, and it was most likely done for Bobby when he was in his later years. As you can see, he's looking older. His sketch kind of depicts him as a little more frail, so most likely in his later years. He would have had the collar by this point, but the artist obviously hasn't drawn it there. So here's another sort of picture of the statue, and the dog was so beloved that a bar beside the graveyard was actually named after him. So this is a picture from a few years ago, just showing that bar, or pub as we like to say in the UK. And this is a more modern photo of Bobby with the newer paint job for the pub behind him, and it is often referred to as Bobby's Bar in Edinburgh. Well worth a look in. It's actually a very, very nice atmosphere in there if you are of drinking age and you ever do fancy popping in for a pint. So many of you will now be thinking, well, this is a story about a dog, so why is there military artillery featuring in this? Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the famous Edinburgh Castle 1 o'clock gun, and a soldier or a guard always at the dot of 1 o'clock will fire this gun. Obviously it is a blank shell, it's not a real round, but as you can imagine it creates quite a big bang and quite a spectacle if you're that close to it to take a picture. what the artillery piece or the gun is famous for in Bobby's story is that every time he would hear the gun go off, he would know it's 1 o'clock, it's food time, and he would run all the way from Greyfriars, from Greyfriars Kirk, all the way up to the castle, where he would receive lunch, and then he'd run back down again. This is one thing why the people of Edinburgh got very, very used to Bobby, is because always, every day, they would see him going at 1 o'clock from the graveyard to the castle and then back again for food. It was said that historically the guards at the castle absolutely adored the dog, loved him, never minded seeing him there giving him food, and always gave him a nice good pat whenever he got there. It's also worth noting that the guards and police within Edinburgh were some of the strongest resistance to Bobby getting moved from the graveyard. They were very much keen on having him stay there at the grave. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Greyfriars Church, and obviously right at the front there, that is Bobby's grave, where he currently still rests today. It is a sad story to think that this dog's owner died, and he spent 14 years guarding his grave. Bobby, by all accounts, was a very loyal, trusting dog. He was very friendly and loved people, but clearly his love for his owner went even beyond death, to the fact that he actually died on his master's grave. And this is Bobby's final resting place here. This is just a quick close-up of Bobby's grave, so that you can see it. It is a momentous story. It is, as I say, Edinburgh's own local story, and probably the most famous dog, well, certainly the most famous dog in Europe, if not the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, since I'm talking about Bobby, I thought I would share another dog's story with you, which is very similar. This one from Japan. Now, what you're seeing here is a photo of probably one of the most saddest dog stories I've ever heard of. This is the dog Hachiko, also known as Hachi. Hachiko's owner was a very, very, very hard-working man who would always get on the train to go to work and then come home at the exact same time to find his loyal dog waiting for him. One day, sadly, Hachiko's owner never did come home. This dog waited at that spot in the train station for 9 years. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you heard me correctly. 9 long years this dog waited, not for his owner, not knowing if he was ever coming back. Sadly, his owner did die. The exact circumstances, I don't know. The Japanese were so enamored by Hachi's story that they actually erected a statue of him in the exact place where he would wait. And here's that statue. I'm afraid I can't read kanji, so I'm not exactly sure what the sash around the statue says, though. If you are wanting me to do a separate video on Hachiko himself, I will find out for you exactly what that banner says. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of Bobby's tale. A relatively short one compared to some other stories I've done or may do, but I do hope you enjoyed it. I have to say I quite like this picture myself, especially with the wee torn scarf around his neck. This statue can be found outside the pub if you ever do want to go and find and see it for yourself. It is very easy to find. Just if you're not sure of the location, just ask anywhere in Edinburgh, where's Bobby's statue, and they'll easily be able to direct you there. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, then please remember to like and subscribe for more lore, myths, legends, and stories. Just to let you know, I will be continuing on with Ancient Egypt in the next video. Exactly what I'll be doing, I have yet to decide. It will be coming soon. I'm toying between doing Namer and Tutmosis III, who are both two different pharaohs. Or I could do a more well-known story, such as the battle between Horus and Set, or perhaps Sekhmet, the Lady of Slaughter, or I could do Sobek's story, who is the crocodile god of the Nile. If any of those do interest you, then please comment in the comment section to let me know if there's any of those you specifically want, or if you prefer a different story. The fifth and final episode for the Ancient Egypt series at the moment will be Scotia. If you're not sure who she is, then you will just have to wait and find out. Bear in mind, her story is up for a lot of speculation, so I do hope you enjoy it. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I am Shenlong Pendragon. Until next time, remember, knowledge is power.